Hello and welcome to the Indie Bandits podcast episode 3+. I'm Joe and today I'll be joined by Jimmy and Archie and we'll be discussing some of the unwritten rules in gaming and what we think of them. The first thing I wanted to talk about is, I guess, game etiquette and the unwritten rules of games. And this came about because I was playing Rocket League the other night and ended up being 3 goals down, and the opposition told me to forfeit, which is a common thing that occurs in Rocket League. Usually when you're 3 goals down, the opposition just tells you to forfeit, as if you can't come back. But I didn't, and then we did come back, and then the opposition got a bit salty about this whole situation, and I didn't understand, and still don't understand, why I should have to forfeit, and why there are these unwritten rules in gaming, such as this in Rocket League, or things like why you're not allowed to camp, or why you can't cheese the same move again and again. And I was wondering, and I'd like to hear what you guys think about it, and if you know any examples of these kind of unwritten rules that gamers are supposed to follow, but don't seem to make any sense, or aren't inherent rules in the games themselves.
Were those people salty because they had lost and they were annoyed because they were 3-0 up and they should have won, or were they just annoyed because you actually carried on playing?
I think they were probably salty because they thought they had the win in the bag and just expected me to forfeit because we were 3 goals down. But then, obviously, because we won, the first thing they did in typical salty fashion was claim that our goals weren't legitimate, or they were schemy goals, or whatever. For one, they criticised me for banking the ball off the wall and into the goal.
All right.
Because apparently you're not allowed to use the physics of the game to score goals anymore.
Right, so basically it's just they want the game played in a very specific way, and if you go out of that, they're annoyed about it.
Well, I think they were annoyed at the fact that they probably threw away a 3-goal lead and should have just seen out the game. But they immediately started this whole argument where it seems that no one's bothered about these unwritten rules unless you win against them, if you get me. Maybe I'm onto something here, that people have these rules of gaming and how to play games because they don't like it when they lose to these rules. Because if camping meant that you couldn't win, then no one would be bothered by players who are camping because they wouldn't be beating them. And if cheesing the same move didn't cause other players to win, then I don't think they'd be bothered. I don't know, do you feel there's any truth in that?
I would say that the camping thing, I've never had a problem with that. I don't understand why, if there's a, it's usually like I'm thinking of Call of Duty or something like that, where someone picks a sniper class, and, the whole point, the way to play a sniper character is to stay hidden, often to, because I guess the weakness is you're using a weapon that, whilst it's good over distance, is terrible in close quarters. So part of the game is finding places that you can use to your advantage and snipe people. And part of that, I would say, is probably camping. And I don't think I've ever had any issue with that. If someone's good at that, then fine. If you're getting annoyed about it, then I don't know, maybe do it yourself or play another game.
Well, what about if you weren't a sniper? Because I think people also get annoyed if you find a nice hidey hole and you've got a shotgun and you just like blast people at point blank range as they run through a door or something.
So what? Though?
But does that ever last though? I mean, like in most of these games, there's a kill cam, isn't there? You run in, someone shoots you find out where they are, and within seconds they're probably dead anyway. Someone else will go back and try and kill them.
Well, I'm assuming that's why the kill cam exists, to like also to what's the word I'm looking for? I think the kill cam exists to counteract the effect that camping could have, because then you might end up with a game where all the players are camping, and then that would be a very boring game. So obviously you've got to encourage players in some ways to make something happen. But I also don't see what the problem is if someone wants to use their head when playing a game. This is what a lot of these rules seem to counteract, playing smart instead of playing well, if you get me.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't necessarily have a problem with camping, and I certainly don't have a problem with the situation you put put up that just because you were 3-0 down, you should just give up and lose the game. I think that's ridiculous. In part, like spamming or cheesing the same moves in a fighting game, whilst I guess I've got no problem with the idea of someone doing it, it would make me question why it is they're playing the game in the first place if they're not actually going to play the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're just out to win.
Yeah, like the whole point of the fighting games, while I'm certainly no good at them and I'm not a huge fan, I would assume that you get enjoyment out of learning the move set of a certain character and playing it well. If you're just going to go in and hit the punch button over and over and over and over again just because you've found out that's a way to win, I can't imagine anyone's getting enjoyment out of that.
Well, who was the character in Tekken that had this amazing back kick, like a backwards somersault kick move?
Can't remember his name.
Was it Law?
That was it. Yeah, it was based on the Bruce Lee thing, wasn't he?
Yes, and he did this like sort of backwards kick that had a huge like arc that hit everything.
Yeah,
and it was a really easy move to do as well. I think it was just pressing 2 buttons at the same time.
So yeah, I mean, just spam that over and again. That's not going to be fun for the person who's getting hit, but I can't imagine it's tons of fun for the person doing the move as well, if that's all it is.
Yeah, but I saw people using that to like complete the story mode so that you could unlock things, because obviously
that's just playing the
was
game.
It you telling us, Archie?
Oh, when I was a kid, I did that when I was a kid, like 8 years old, playing Tekken 2. I would just spam the law move because I didn't really care about playing the game. I just wanted to watch the cutscenes at the end for each character.
Right.
And I would just spam the law move and lose the final fight, and it would give you the option to switch your character at the end. Switch your character at the end, win the last boss, who was always dead easy, and there you go, you get a new character and you get to watch it. That's all I ever did with Tekken 2.
Who was the last boss in Tekken 2?
He was Devil, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Was Ogre Tekken 3?
I have no idea. I only ever really played Tekken 2, to be honest. So
that's just playing the game to beat the game, though, isn't it? That's not playing the game to play the game. That's playing the game to beat the game, as you've said. Like, you just wanted to see all the cutscenes.
Yeah,
that's a different reason.
I was like 10 years old. I was like, I don't care about.
Yeah, I'm not
game.
having a go. I'm just saying there's playing a game to like play the game and fully experience it, or there's playing a game just to beat the game.
Well, in this case, nowadays, you don't even have to worry about that. I feel you can just look up all these videos. It's like, your reward was seeing these videos. Now you can just see, you could probably look them up on YouTube, and there's probably a video of like all the ending videos of Tekken, and then you don't have to do the arduous task of spamming that move from Law. Buying the game.
Yeah. Where do you two stand on spamming or cheesing or camping?
What do you mean by cheesing?
Cheesing is just the same as spamming.
Okay.
When you're playing cheesy. I didn't know what the terminology for these were. When I was little, we used to call it being cheesy when you just pick the same move. Or, because in some cases, well, what cheesy included wasn't necessarily just doing the same move. It was the way you played a game. And for me, it was playing Street Fighter 2 with my cousins. And they would always get really mad if like you pinned one person in a corner and just kind of got this like flow going where you could just keep hitting the character, and the second they stood up before they could hit a move, you'd hit them again, and by that point it's game over for the opposition. And they're like, oh, stop being cheesy, like, I want to have like a proper fight. But
I'm not bothered about either of these things. I don't generally play competitive games online or anything like that for this exact reason, that people are making up all these unwritten rules about how you shouldn't play it, and I just the point of that. If you want to camp, I don't really care. If that's the way you like playing the game, do it. If people are camping near spawn points, I understand how that's frustrating. I'm not really for that. But if you're using it as a tactical method of, like, giving you the advantage, then I don't understand why anybody would give a shit about that. It seems like
playing smart.
Yeah, it seems like people only really want to play with, like, brute force rather than tactics, and brute force to me is dull and boring, and doing something slower and a bit more tactically, something I would rather do, but the internet community would have me hung, drawn and quartered for having that mentality, I feel, so I kind of don't even indulge in these games anymore because of that. But if you compare it to
that's
something
the impression
else,
I get.
So spamming, and sorry, not spamming, camping, is seen as being kind of, ooh, you shouldn't do that, that's bad etiquette for whatever reason. And it just seems to be because it doesn't really, what's the word I'm looking for, like, it doesn't allow the people who aren't doing that to win as quickly as they would want, if you know what I mean. Like, So if you compare that to something like GTA, where you have the curb boosting thing, which is a bug essentially in the game, where if you ride your car over the curbs of the side of the track again and again, you're getting your small incremental boost in your car every time, giving you a speed advantage over the people who aren't doing that. And people don't seem too bothered about that, if you know what I mean. That's a tactic, not one that should really exist in the game, but it seems like, oh, this gives me an advantage. And, you know,
it's more of an exploit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an exploit, but people don't seem to be too bothered about that exploit. So it's just, to me, like, I don't know, it's quite hard to articulate, but if something's, like, if it works the way they want to do it, they seem to be fine with it, if you know what I mean. While if they don't want to do the whole sit down, bunker down for a couple of minutes, carefully shoot somebody from a distance, because that is harder, it's a harder way of playing the game, they don't seem to want to do that. Like,
yeah, I think it's because curb boosting involves like a level of technical ability, and it seems that a lot of these rules I've found are against using your brain to play and relying solely on like either rote memory or technical ability. So I think curb boosting is okay because you have to have the skill to be able to do it.
yeah,
You know, no one's bothered if you can, for example, in Mario Kart, the drifting gives you a boost, right?
yeah,
And I don't think you can do it in the latest one, but in previous versions you could do what they called like snake boosting or snake drifting, where you'd basically drift right and then left repeatedly, so that your car would have would travel in a straight line in terms of net movement, whilst weaving from left to right and benefiting from the boost you get from drifting. So it was a way to drift effectively in a straight line, but because that required skill to pull off, and obviously if you mess it up, then you crash or drive off the track or something like that. Because it required technical skill, people weren't bothered about it. It wasn't a cheesy way to play. It seems that people don't mind if it rewards you for your technical skill at playing the game, but are bothered if someone uses their brain more than their technical ability in the sake of camping.
I would say that just applies to camping, though. I don't think
True.
you're using your brain to just cheese the same move over and over again in a fighting game. I would not consider that either of technical ability or using your brain. That is literally just finding a loophole in a game and then not playing it properly. And I say properly with like...
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? You know, generally I wouldn't care, but I personally wouldn't understand how someone would get enjoyment out of it. That's it.
Yeah.
If they want to do it, fine, but I just wouldn't understand why they'd even bother turning the game on in the first place for that.
yeah. I'd rather people, like, if they could not use the exploits in games, like the Etiquette for Mario there, and the curb boosting in GTA. And there's loads of these in other games. I know Crash Team Racing's got one where I think you can give yourself like infinite boost. But like kids who are playing this game, it's a kids game at the end of the day. They're not going to go online and like win any rounds because of people like our age who are a bit more like, you know, technically proficient with these things. They're just going to like, you know, win every time. So I'm not for exploits. I don't understand the point of using, although me and Joe both sing GTA, so I'm kind of being a bit hypocritical. When it comes out to camping, where it is something that is just like, it is a part of the game, especially with something like Battlefield, where the maps are big enough to allow something like that. I just don't understand why anyone has a problem if somebody wants to play the game that way. The game's built to be played that way, so why do people care?
Because it's probably someone of higher skill being killed by someone of lesser skill, and they just find it so grating that it's even happened that they have to call that person out.
Well, I think that's the case, isn't it? It's that using, if you can't beat someone technically, and this is the same in not in just competitive games, but also in sports themselves, that there are times, and there's been many a time, where teams or players that you wouldn't think would win an event have done so because they've played smart.
Yeah, like a lesser team putting 10 men behind the ball and coming out with this snidey 1-0 win, but like, what else were they going to do? They can't go toe-to-toe with the better team. That's the only chance they've got, is to play that way.
With most games, in a competitive aspect, I feel camping is generally negated anyway. I mean, I feel maybe camping might be less of an issue now than it was in the past. Like you were saying, Archie, camping next to spawn points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cheesy as fuck, that, like.
That is, yeah. That's crossing from camping into...
Yes, exactly. Sitting at a spawn point, and the second everyone spawns, they don't know where they are. They've just appeared randomly in a new part of of the map or the game. They're trying to get their bearings, and then you just shooting them immediately. Obviously, this is counteracted with things like players are invincible for a few seconds when they spawn.
The kill cam as well.
There's the kill cam that counteracts this, and then you've also got the fact that a lot of these games don't reward you for your kill-death ratio. There's little consequence to dying in most first-person shooters online, other than, obviously, you lose a kill streak, for example, in Call of Duty. But the game encourages you to get as many kills as you can. So, in some cases, camping won't work effectively anyway, because unless you're in a high-traffic area, you won't get enough people running past you to kill. So I think I don't know if this is just something that's lasted from the earlier days of gaming, and people have it's become part of the culture of gaming, that it's just not a done thing. It's just not cricket.
I just don't agree with it. If you want to camp, hunker down, play that way because you like playing that way, and the game allows that, then play that way. And don't let anybody tell you can't do that just because they think it's the way they want you to play. It's just like, get a grip. Get a grip. It's an online game. It's the opposite of get good. It's get a grip. Like, don't get good, get a grip.
Well, going back to Rocket League, I remember for a while there used to be this idea that you couldn't have a goalkeeper.
Why? That doesn't make any sense.
For ages, because I play Rocket League a lot, but I'm not very good, and I play with Dom, and he's not very good.
Is he coming on the podcast, by the way?
I doubt it. I doubt it. I think he's in lockdown. But
is he?
yeah, so Dom and I play regularly, and for a long time, we have been playing defensive counter-attacking Rocket League. That's the only way we can beat people, is having them overcommit, and then us just rush down the other side of the pitch on a quick counter-attack and score goals into an empty net. Now, for a very long time, people would get annoyed at that we would organise who would hang around goal, because it's annoying conceding a goal that rolls in very slowly because you have no one near the goal. So we always the plan was one of us hangs back, one of us goes up when we're on the defence. One of us, blocks passing lanes, whatever, and the other one sits in goal and blocks shots so that we don't concede a load of easy goals. Then when they've overcommitted, we both rush down the field and score into empty nets or with easy opportunities. And players used to seem to get very annoyed and have loads of messages going, "Oh, you're just hanging back with a goalkeeper," or stupid stuff like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, why wouldn't we have a goalkeeper? Like, I don't want loads of goals to be scored against us. That's the point of the game, not to concede goals and score more goals than the opposition. So for me, attack is as important as defence. And in the few years I've been playing that has since shifted. It seems that having a defensive player / goalkeeper is now part and parcel of this whole game, and the etiquette has changed.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if these other etiquette, obviously as games get more sophisticated anyway, I'm wondering if these unwritten rules will change.
Well, they're only adhered to by a small minority of people who take the games way too seriously anyway.
Do you remember Jedi Knight 2? Sorry, this is my favourite example of
yeah.
This game seemed to have tons and tons of unwritten rules. I mean, I was going to say pages of unwritten rules, but they're unwritten, so they wouldn't be on any pages. But I remember playing that, and there were so many things that you could do that would annoy players in that game.
Like
that
not
would
bowing
be,
before a match. Do you remember that?
Not bowing before a duel.
Sorry, true. That's what I meant. Yeah.
But the game had an inbuilt duel mechanic. If you wanted a lightsaber duel, you could press it, and what it would do is you would remain in the map, but you could not be harmed or affected by any other players in the deathmatch.
Yeah.
But people would refuse to do that, instead letting them still be hit by other players whilst they were having a duel. And they would get really annoyed if I ran past and just lobbed grenades at two people having a lightsaber fight and killing them both and getting 2 kills. They're like, we were having a duel. Like, the game has a built-in duel mechanic so that I can't do that, so just do that. Like, I don't know why you're not doing that when you can. Or you're not allowed to use force powers in matches that have force powers active. I'm like, so... Or you're not allowed to use certain force powers. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What a game, though, man.
It was a cracking online game, mine.
I only went into the lightsaber duels because I didn't like the force powers because they were so like unbalanced in terms of like competitive online play.
I wasn't good enough to use them anyway.
Yeah, I was so bad, like, but I just went into the lightsaber battles because they were also the most fun. We just having like drills with everybody. That was great, man. So much fun.
That was a cool system where it was like winner stays on in lightsaber duels, wasn't it? There was just like it was a great online game, but the thing that really put me off it was the community and how furious they got and how many rules you had to sort of remember if you didn't want to get into trouble and like getting kicked from servers because of these rules that are just assumed.
I feel like in those situations, as in most of these situations, it's a vocal minority. I'd say most people probably didn't care, but it's the vocal minority of people who take this stuff way too serious, who create these unwritten laws and then hold everyone else accountable to them, even though it's not a rule of the game. And it's just like, yeah, it's a bit ridiculous, but I'm positive it's like a vocal minority rather than the vast majority of players out there.
Well, even in me and Joe play GTA 5 with Dom a lot, and we sometimes do. Well, we quite often do the races on that. And there's always this one person who would come into the lobby with us who would insist that every race we do be a non-contact race.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, is that you, James? Make it non-contact. But yeah, people seem to just like. I know when we're doing this race as well, we carry on a bit, and we're pretty aggressive racers, but we're not doing it like to the point of which I think it's outside of the rules of the game. You get people who are driving backwards on the track, and I understand why you might want non-contact on for that, which is infuriating. That is really annoying, but that's a different topic. But when we're racing, surely the contact and the worry of having somebody else around you who can just like ruin your game in an instance is like part of the fun of racing. That's what I get at least. And there's always these people like, oh, make it non-contact, man, make it non-contact. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I like crashing into other racers.
I like crashing into
but
too.
To get ahead, we just spend the whole races crashing into one another. But whilst racing is the important thing. We're not just blocking the track, but we do like, giving someone a little nudge as they go into a corner to put them off the line, flying into the back of them to put them in a spin. Like, it's dirty racing.
But is that part of the game?
Well, there's physics in the game.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's not a hardcore racing game where people are following racing rules and will be docked like time.
No. There's no penalty system.
Yeah, so it's just part of the game then.
Well, you can even do races called GTA races where you can get out the car and shoot people. Like, there are we don't often play many of those because I just like the racing, but there is a game mode in which you can shoot out of your car and stuff like that. Like, it's Grand Theft Auto. It's sort of organized chaos anyway.
It's not F1.
But there are some players that get like really, really upset. Like, I've had a good number of messages from players because there's been contact between my car and their car in a race.
If you're that bothered about it, why don't you just go get a proper racing game and play a proper racing game?
Yeah, just play Gran Turismo, because that, as I explained last time round when we were talking about the Zim and that, in Gran Turismo, the matchmaking is done according to your sportsmanship racing and your driver ability. So your driver rating is according to your results, and your sportsmanship rating goes up and down according to the contact and penalties you receive during a race. So contact in races gives you time penalties and slow down penalties, and there's this whole system of penalties in Gran Turismo. There's not in GTA. And GTA is not a serious racing game that follows like the FIA rules for racing. So I never understand why they have this. Some players think it's an unwritten rule to crash into other drivers, causing them to spin, because that's why we do it. Spin someone off the track, knock them off the line, get your elbows out.
Other races are doing it as well, and you've just got to like outdo them at the same tactics, and that's kind of why it's fun. But it's like, if you don't want to, why join a lobby where we're not going to make it the type of race mode you want? And it's not like there's like few people playing this game. There's like 100 million copies of GTA 5 out there in the world. So if you want to do your non-contact game, leave our lobby and go join another one and find.
This is just starting to sound like you two having a go at this one guy who wanted non-contact race.
Sarah's his name.
Get out of our lobby.
I can't believe you just name dropped Kill. Archie.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you now, Killmonster is one user that really annoyed Archie this once, and he's not forgotten his name.
I haven't, not once. I did actually write it down at the time because he was so annoying.
God.
So what really gets me with the GTA thing is I think crashing into people and knocking them off their lines in a contact race is totally fine. It's underhanded and it's schemy, but the whole game is underhanded and schemy. It's about criminals. So I think it fits in with the tone of the game to use these tactics to win. Now, I am very against players who just stop dead and block the track or drive backwards. Because for me, they're not even trying to win. In many cases, some of them will get knocked off or spun at the start of a race, and then it's the equivalent of picking up your football and going home and saying, "I'm not playing anymore," because it's like they've stopped competing, and they're just out there to be vindictive to the other players.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's trolling, and for me, that crosses a line. Like, you can be as underhanded as you like in order to win. Because that's within the rules and confines, and the game allows it. But I do wish the game would do something so that it wouldn't interfere with the players who are wanting to just play the game. Because in some cases I've had races that you cannot finish because 2 or 3 players have just blocked part of the track before a long jump, meaning that you cannot build up the speed to make a certain jump, and in that instance, it's just everyone's day ruined because 2 or 3 players are in a huff.
I don't know why they can't put something in for people. Like, they must know about this. Why can't they put something in? Like, if you've been driving wrong way, like, for about 30 seconds, why can't you just boot that? Like,
you do in GD.
Yeah. If you're too stationary for too long, like, if you're just sitting there, just boot them. Just say, look, if you do, like, AFK can, like,
almost idle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think play the way you kind of want to play, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, as long as the way you want to play isn't being a dick.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Bandit podcast. If you'd like more on indie gaming, feel free to check out our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and now find us on Twitch, where we'll be streaming some of the latest indie games.